Thank you so much for having me here today and giving me a chance to share some thoughts about the Bike Streets Project. My name is Avi Stopper. I'm the founder of Bike Streets. And the Bike Streets Project is founded on one simple idea. Imagine what would happen if we all rode our bikes on the same streets. I had an interesting interaction that I will not soon forget recently that I'd like to share with you today. I was wandering the aisles somewhat aimlessly in the grocery store, and I came across a guy who's probably about 25 years old, and we struck up a conversation. And what he said to me really is something that I probably will remember for a long, long time. He said, "Because of climate change, people in my generation have no hope for the future." Now just let that sink in for a moment, the gravity of a statement like that from someone who should be really at 25 at the peak of his idealism. And yet, perhaps you've felt that way. It's hard not to when we're constantly beset with headlines like this one. July 2019 was the hottest month on record for the planet. France hit 115 degrees this summer. The Greenland ice sheet dropped 200 billion tons of water into the North Atlantic this summer. Climate change now threatens the world's food supply, according to the UN. And right here at home, as I'm sure you felt, Denver hit triple digits for the first time ever during the month of September. By now, no doubt you've seen this. Pretty much everyone has. The world has just over a decade to get climate change under control, according to the United Nations. And yet, right here at home, Denver's plan for bicycles will still take 18 years. If that. So the question becomes, what can we do? Other than going home and curling up with a book, or in a fetal position, perhaps watching some old episodes of Friends, what can we do? And let's be clear, bikes alone in Denver will not solve climate change. And yet, I think this is an opportunity. The glass is half full. This is an opportunity for the people here today in this room, the Denver Streets Congress. This is an opportunity for the people in our city. This is an opportunity of a lifetime for the leaders of this city to make Denver a beacon for the rest of the world on how a city can transition to a post-carbon mobility system. The good news is that we've been here before as a society. We have great inspiration and sources of insight on which to draw. We know the solution, and I think the solution, in a word, is community. A community of people marching arm in arm, marching on the same streets together, organized against what at times can feel like the longest of odds. As Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." A community organized. For the last year or so, I've been working to organize and create such a community, and we call that community the Bike Streets Project. And Bike Streets operates under one very simple idea. Imagine what would happen if we all rode bikes on the same streets. Empty streets like this would start to look like this and like this and like this. You'd see families out there. Increasingly, you'd see more and more happy bicyclists moving through their community with smiles on their faces. You'd see children out there moving freely and comfortably through their community. And as the number of bicycles increased, so too would the number of cars using that select group of streets decrease. Maybe, just maybe, we'd create a virtuous circle, one in which more people on bikes riding on the same streets leads to even more people feeling comfortable about riding their bikes, which in turn leads to even more people getting on bikes on the same streets, which in turn leads to even more people feeling comfortable out there riding. In short, a picture like this. A picture that would be hard for our leaders to ignore. A picture that would inspire, I believe, deep investments in making these streets and these routes and these communities that much richer and better. Indeed, when the people lead, the leaders follow. So the inevitable question is, where should we ride? On which streets should this happen? And the Bike Streets Project has a pretty simple underlying credo, and it's this: anyone irrespective of age, race, socioeconomic status, background, or ability on a bike, anyone should be able to ride a bike to any destination in Denver. Not in 2037, now. And what quickly becomes abundantly clear is that it's going to be very difficult to ever build community on conventional bike lanes like this. It will be almost impossible to get children out riding, to get people who don't feel comfortable riding in traffic, riding on bike lanes like this. This is the bike lane on Emerson, northbound in my neighborhood. And one day I just decided that I had had enough riding in this bike lane because of things like you're seeing in this picture. And so I decided to start riding one street over on Ogden, which is a quiet, tree-lined street. And really, ever since that day, I have never turned back. I have never ridden on Emerson again. I have always ridden, when headed north or south, on Ogden. And bit by bit, as I needed to get around town to get to different places on my bike, I would look for similar streets that had characteristics that were similar to those that I found on Ogden. And indeed, I would find amazing scenes like this, families on bikes. And what I can tell you is that if a street is good enough for a kid riding a 12-inch bike with an R2-D2 helmet, it's probably good for most people who would get out and ride bikes. One thing about this specific picture that I'd like to share is that this is on 22nd Ave in Park Hill. And if you're familiar with that neighborhood, you know that one street up on 23rd, there's a bike lane and some Sharrows situation. And one street south on Montview, there's a bike lane as well. And yet, people in this community choose to ride on 22nd on this quiet neighborhood street. Indeed, these are the places where people already ride in their neighborhoods, and not just the youngest or most vulnerable users or riders. Often you'll see people who have years and years of commuting experience riding happily on these quiet streets. I believe that these are the places, these are the streets where we can realistically build community. And with the Bike Streets Project, over the last year, we have convened a group of volunteers that has shared these types of routes with us, routes that they use in their neighborhoods to get around, places they like to ride with their families, places they like to ride to get to work or to church, places that they ride to get to the park or the library. And so what we did with this group of volunteers is we pulled together a comprehensive map of these types of routes, routes that I like to think of as folk knowledge that is encapsulated in neighborhoods and that can be shared with the community at large and consolidated into a single comprehensive map. We ran a Kickstarter to print this map, and over the last 2 months after we got the map back from the printer, we gave out 20,000 maps. The map has about 400 miles of quiet neighborhood streets and trails on it, and it's been used 150,000 times online. In August, for the first time, we started to measure our impact, and what we found was that it seems like there are about 7,500 or so daily riders out on bike streets. People of all ages, of all backgrounds, and all levels of ability on a bike. So I'm here today to ask you for one simple thing. I'm here to invite you to join the community, to ride on these streets with us. And one easy way to get involved is to sign up for the September Challenge. Can you ride your bike to 10 destinations using Bike Streets in 1 month? There's still plenty of time. To sign up, go to bikestreets.com/September. And lastly, I want to leave you with this thought. Imagine for a moment. Imagine what would happen if we all rode our bikes on the same streets. Thank you.